It's Tools Tuesday, and one of the best tools that you could have to attack prop betting for the 2024 MLB season is getting the BatX projection system. It is the projections that I use and I have used to bet on MLB props, as well as on the pick'em sites like PrizePicks and Underdog for the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, and then DFS wise for the past, I don't know, 7 years. And I've worked with the man behind the system for quite a while at Roto Grinders. It's Derek Carty, creator of the Bat X. X means it's better now, right? It used to be the Bat with a capital the, which
always capital.
It's always capital the for some reason. And now it includes StatCast data. People are out there. Start of the MLB season. I get this often, Derek. What is the best projections for MLB? Right? Whether it be
I know.
Whether it be for DFS, because you're known for season-long projections, you're known for DFS projections, you're known for betting projections, and people come. It's like, okay, I'm getting ready for the MLB season. I want the best projections. My first answer is any projections are better than no projections.
Yeah.
So feel free to use the Roto Grinders projections. There are projections at Stochastic. There are projections at SaberSim. A lot of the DFS content sites have been doing this for a long time. So I trust their process. But you've been doing it for, I think, the longest. And your projections are less market-driven and more from the bottom up. So can you explain, like, why do you think you have the quote-unquote best projections?
I mean, I think I have the best projections. First, because when there's third-party tests that get run on it, it's shown to be really good. Subscribers have obviously done really, really well with it over a long period of time. And because I think the approach I take to it is very different than anyone else does. Like you said, other people are kind of taking more of a market-based approach or whatever, where they're, bringing in Vegas lines and then trying to, work down from that. Whereas the Bat does everything from the bottom up. I'm projecting everything myself. Vegas lines don't go into it at all. Basically, the Bat winds up creating its own that you can compare to the Vegas lines and bet against, with some edge, which is nice. But I mean, but I started out in before DFS was a thing, before betting was even close to legalized. I was just doing baseball analysis with some really smart people at some really smart sites. A lot of them now are working for major league teams, making decisions for major league teams. So a lot of my methodology is just really advanced, great stuff that actual teams are using. And it's, I think, methodology that no one else is really even coming close to. I think the Bat accounts for more factors than anyone else does. In the last couple of years, we've had more attention fall onto, weather and umpires and stuff like that. And the Bat's been doing that forever and has great system for it, but it's accounting for so many different things that the public just isn't accounting for well.
So you think that the magic sauce, the secret stuff for the Bat is that even the betting lines, and we're talking about like sides and totals, are not efficient based on the amount of weight. I don't want to necessarily use the term weight when it comes to like a mathematical concept, because like for example, last season, I believe it was last season, didn't we have that situation where they were playing a game in London at that stadium with like the short fences, but they were tall, and it seemed as if, I mean, it was like a generational betting opportunity of the number wasn't high enough. The total was nowhere close to high
Mexico
enough.
City game, yeah.
Okay, that one, Mexico also. Like your system, like takes those things into account. It's not like a lot of DFS projections are made, like you mentioned, in a top-down way where they project players, right? Because there's a difference between a sides and a totals market and a player prop market. Now, some people create player projections from the player prop market, which we both know are not efficient. right?
Not at
So
all.
like you're taking numbers that are well based on the wisdom of the crowd, 6.5 strikeouts are about right. Like you're not doing that. But a lot of systems, they'll take, oh, it's the Yankees Orioles. The total is 9.5. The Yankees are favored minus 185. Have come up with an implied, total for each team. And then based on, a little bit of weather, a little bit of ballpark, a little bit of whatever, like it's like, oh, we're expecting the Yankees to put up 5.6 runs today. How does that distribute out amongst all the batters and how the pitchers and the innings and everything like that? Like you're not taking that market at all. You're just saying, well, I'm going to just simulate it from the start and
Yeah,
go like
exactly.
I don't care that this number is supposedly like efficient, which I don't even think the sides and totals in MLB are. I mean, in certain scenarios, not even close. I think that is the secret sauce of the bat where you can be confident that you're not double counting things that are either taken care of in the lines or not taken care of enough in the lines. Because I see a lot of people in the Roto Grinders Discord. We have that Wrigley weather game. The wind's blowing out at 25 miles an hour, and that those Cubs projections are through the roof. And then people are like, "Oh, they project well, and the wind is blowing out." It's like, no, they project well because the wind is blowing out. And I think a lot of MLB bettors, especially with props, like take a look and double count. Like, oh, but this is a bad umpire. It's like, well, I never have to think of that when I'm using the bat because, and pretty much, I mean, honestly, anything that I could think of, you've already thought of.
I mean, I certainly try to, and I try to be very transparent about it too, so that people know what they're looking at. I'm willing to tell people what goes into it, anything that that doesn't, and then they can decide from there. Okay, do I want to account for something else, or is it already in the projections? Which usually it's already in the projections.
And one of the things that you count on is the StatCast data, which is fairly new, right? In the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of
Yeah,
sabermetrics, StatCast data is new. So there will be instances. I mean, I remember last year. I mean, I'm speaking from experience. So, like to me, like this isn't like a sales pitch type of video. It's like I'm describing why I use the bat and how I've been profitable every year using it, whether it be DFS, props, pick 'em, anything. Is that like in the bat? People look at these things and they go, well, this guy hasn't hit a, this guy is the past 7 games. He's gone 1 for 30 or BVP. Dude, the G-Man Choi against Garrett Cole, like you got to play him for a home run, right? Like those types of things where you admit that those types of small sample anomalies, some of them are actually true. It's impossible to prove it. But for the most part, you're chasing after shadows. So a lot of the data that you're incorporating with the bat, like diminish the fact of, well, his past 3 starts. I remember last year. I mean, imagine last year thinking about what happened by the end of the year. I remember there was a point in mid-May or late May
Blake
where
Snell.
people were like, how are you still playing? Blake Snell is priced at like 8,200 on DraftKings, and like the bat is like, no, you're supposed to jam this guy in, and it's like, well, last outing he had 7 walks and gave up 10 runs, and because the underlying data is showing that he's mostly getting unlucky, and he's also a high variance pitcher to begin with. So when he does get a little unlucky, he's so much more likely to just completely implode. But his velocity is fine, his control is fine. All these underlying stuff that his BABIP is high, and so many people you saw in the markets.
Oh yeah,
Like I was betting Blake Snell overs like every start, and in April and May, not doing well.
yeah.
And then the market adjusted as if, oh, Blake Snell's not a good pitcher anymore. And then I was even more and more confident that one good start came into a second good start to a third. And next thing you know, Like I took advantage of 2 months, 7, 8 starts where his strikeout prop uh, is 1.5 too low. Like his pitching outs are like, we don't think this guy's going to go over 5 innings, and I'm like, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me more. While the rest of the market is like, no, this guy sucks. I mean, he got lucky for his 12 strikeouts last. He'll go back to being a pumpkin again, right? So to
Yeah.
me, I view the bat's biggest strength is taking away the bias of these short-term samples, so that you could take advantage of the fact that a lot of times, especially in the prop markets, people are much more willing to get off the bandwagon and not actually look at whether or not this guy is actually good or actually bad.
Yep. And it's huge. Like the bat looks at those things. It's studied them. I've studied them and kind of decides, okay, what's relevant, what's not. A lot of times that small sample stuff is not relevant. And so if you ignore it, you become more accurate by doing that. And it opens up opportunities in the market, because a lot of times some of the best value you can find in the market is just the market overreacting to whatever's happened recently. This terrible pitcher's been on a stretch where he's had 3 really great games. And so now his strikeout prop is 6.5, minus 150. And it's like, no, I'll take the under on that. This guy's not actually good. And opportunities like that are great because the projection is not going to overreact. The market is, and it creates this huge gap that you can act on.
So what other factors in the back? Because people will look and go, okay, you obviously have like long baseline talent, right? You have the short stuff from a day to day is like the weather, right? Is the umpires, is the bullpen, right? Is the bullpen good on the other? Like to me, that the bat already takes care of that. But like from a baseline perspective, one of the downsides, if I want to call it, I don't consider it a downside, is that sometimes it doesn't identify when short-term things are actual real things, and the market actually, their overreaction actually ends up being right. Now, in the general sense, most things regress to the mean. When it comes to a long, 3-4 year sample size of a batter in their prime, a pitcher in their prime with no injuries, like no velocity change, no pitch change. But you also have like these rookies. You have minor league pitchers coming up, right? It's like, okay, this guy's coming up for a spot start in Double-A. No major league data, right? A rookie hitter's coming up, right? Ellie De La Cruz last year, right? Not much data. How does the bat react to those shorter term samples, or trying to make weight of like minor league data? And how does it react to shorter term stuff? Because I remember a long time ago. This will bring back memories. How often did we play Chris Davis like every day on the A's
Oh, I
until we
remember that.
realized that Chris Davis not good anymore?
Yeah, that was fun. So the thing, I think the main point here is that a lot of people, when they first start approaching DFS or sports betting, especially betting, they feel like it's possible to win every bet you make. It's like, I should be able to know what's going to happen if I'm really good at this, and I should just be able to win every single bet because I'm just going to know what's going to happen because I'm that good. And that's not the case. Professional bettors, good bettors, sharp bettors, they know they're going to lose a certain amount of their bets and they're fine with it. Like, we go in understanding we're only going to win, depending on the market or whatever, or the odds, 60%, 65% of our bets. And that's okay, because even if you have a guy like Chris Davis, where it's a small sample size and the small sample size winds up being the truth, that's one data point in a pool of maybe 10 or 20 others where the guy did wind up going back to what he used to do or what he should have done. And so if you're not, hopefully you weren't only betting or only playing Chris Davis. Hopefully you were playing other stuff around him too. And the other stuff probably did well enough to offset the losses that Chris Davis gave you.
Because a lot of people, they say to me, you'll see this in DFS, because I'm in Discords, and obviously been playing for almost 10 years. This guy did badly. His projection, he got his projection wrong. And then I'll go, well, how about the 14 other pitchers that were today? Like how
Yeah.
what did you judge? Like there's no such thing as like this projection system sucks for this guy, but not for that guy.
No,
Like
it's not a
it
thing.
doesn't, right? And especially if you have a much more well-rounded approach to prop betting and pick 'em, that at some point, if you wanted to say, you know what, I'm betting this guy's under like all the time, and I'm only getting this successful 38% of the time. Maybe this could be the outlier that short term is more valuable than long term, but I'm also betting on like 100 things. So it's like it's something that over the course of a season that I'm weighing over time, and I'm much more willing to give you the benefit of the doubt and not, the prop betting market, because the prices I'm getting for that outcome just get better and better and better, so that when I would say most of the time, a majority of the time, it's a short-term aberration. But like you say on a lot of DFS shows, uh, trends don't matter because you don't know when they end, right? You don't like, oh yeah, he's been bad for 8 days, but like if he regresses to the mean, like when does that happen? Does it happen today? Does it happen on the? But as it goes on, the better price you're getting because the market is reacting more and more. So instead of the home run prop 2 weeks ago would have been plus 350, now it's plus 550, right? So if you stay on board and you trust the projections, when they do come back on the other side, you actually made more money than you should have because of the market overreacting to it. So my attitude typically is I ride things much longer than most people. Uh and I subsidize that by, well, I got 30, 40, 50, 100. Dude, some days in MLB, I will have 100 plus bets out. And half the time, Derek, I'm not even sure what I'm rooting for. I go to sleep and I have no idea. Like, I have no idea. I wake up and I go, okay, what happened? Did this guy go over hits? Did this guy go over whatever? So to me, the outlier stuff is stuff that you could judge on a sample by sample basis. But if the model is good, if the projection system is good, I mean, to me, that makes it even more likely that the more diversity in your portfolio, the more and more likely that you're going to you may not profit the most, but they're maximizing the probability of overall profit has to be so much higher.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just because something small happens in a small sample size and even continues for a while, I mean, it's like we said, like the other stuff evens out. Like we know going in, there's going to be a certain number of players or teams or whatever that are just going to get lucky or unlucky all year. You think about a normal distribution curve. On the ends, there's going to be somebody doing something really crazy and extreme that the projection is going to be wrong on. Wrong on. You have no idea who it is beforehand. You have no idea while it's going on. It's not predictable, but we know it's going to happen. So you just deal with it because all the stuff towards the middle of that curve is going to make up for it.
One last thing about your projections is that all projection systems need inputs. So we have in football, you can't just, okay, we're just going to, you either simulate out games or you're assigning target shares, rushing shares based on how we think the team is going to play. Basketball is a perfect example because when you do projections, you dole out minutes, right? What are the rotations going to look like? What is the median number of minutes? This guy's going to play 28 minutes on average, right? 35 minutes. And then you run everything through that. Then you run the totals and everything and the usage rates and the defensive and offensive efficiency. In MLB is the only input. Like, how do you deal? To me, the biggest input in MLB is pitch count, right? Because a lot of times you're betting on pitcher props. So obviously pitch count matters. Or you're betting on hitter props that depend on how long is this starter going to be in? What's the bullpen look like? So there's a much big difference. Like, use an extreme example. We see a lot of times throughout the year that guys coming off the IR, right? 15-day, whatever, 10-day IR. He went down to the minors and had like a rehab stint. And he's coming back, and some projections will project him for 95 pitches. Some will project him for 65 pitches. Now, obviously, that's a very big discrepancy, and there'll also be ones right in the middle. A lot of times we see in the market that I mean, you could look and see like, oh, in his minor league rehab start, he only pitched 3 innings and had 45 pitches. Like, the likelihood of him going 95 pitches historically, unless the manager has said something that he's fine to do that, he's probably not. A lot of times you find and then you look and you see 17 and a half pitching outs prop, and I go, well, I'm taking this under before it moves because like there's no way he's going 95 pitches. And then there's also other scenarios where everyone thinks he's coming off a 3-week stint on the IR, but he had 2 minor league starts that he went 6 innings. Like, he pitched like 75 efficient innings, right? 75 efficient. And then like the next start, he had 80. You're like, well, he's going to come back and he's probably going to be fine, right? And you may find a market where his strikeout prop's 4.5. And the bat is projecting him at like 6.3, right? Because the pitch count is at like 98 or something. Like, is that the biggest input? Is that the only input that really matters? And how do you handle that? Either manually or algorithmically, or like how does that work? Because I think that's the biggest thing, especially if you're betting overnights.
Yeah, I mean,
you're sleeping and you've kind of created this. The system has created it yourself, and then you kind of show up in the morning and kind of like lay the lay of the land. Can you tell me the intricacies of how that works? Because if you're going to go and get the Bat X either at rotogrinders.com or evanalytics.com, to me that's the number one. Like, to me that's the input to look at. The same way that when I look at NBA projections, I go, let me see what the minutes look like. And when I see someone like, I have a 37% edge on the over on his points, I go, yeah, because my projections have him for 36 minutes and pretty much everyone else has it at 31. And maybe 36 is right, but at least I know why I'm showing huge edges. Pitcher projections kind of work the same way, where 75% edge. It's like, I think there may be a pitch count issue here that I should at least either the market is off or you're off. And half the time it's one and half the time it's the other. And if you don't know the difference, like, can you just dive into like how pitch counts are determined in the bat?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, pitch counts are huge. It's the one input that requires some sort of manual intervention, which it gets every single morning by myself. I do it. But it will start with an automated baseline, and it will consider the minor league rehab starts and that sort of thing. It'll consider if the guy's on short rest. It'll consider all sorts of different super complicated stuff that goes into figuring out how many pitches the guy should be throwing that day. The matchup matters. Everything matters. The umpire matters. The whole thing. But I will look every morning and I'll say, okay, does this pitch count look right for this guy, given what we know about him, what he's been doing? Is this a situation where he's been out for the last 2 months and he didn't throw any rehab starts. And so the system's projecting him for like 50 pitches, but actually he threw a couple simulated games on the backfield and worked himself up to 75. And that doesn't show up in any of the data feeds. And so, you look for the beat reports and you find that kind of stuff. And then you manually put the number in, you say, okay, well, if he threw 75 in a simulated game, maybe he's going to go 90 today. And no one thinks he's going to because he had no rehab starts over 2 months. And a lot of times the best edges can be found just based on the pitch counts or the implied pitch counts of the market being off. And the automation from the bat can certainly be off, but that's why the manual intervention is needed. I do that first thing in the morning every day. And hopefully at that point, the projection becomes much more efficient than whatever the market's implying.
Right. Because to me, how I use the bat is I check the lines before I go to sleep. I check the lines in the morning. I check the lines at like 4 or 5 o'clock Eastern. When starting lineups come out and umpire assignments and obviously more predictive weather, right? Whether or not that storm is actually going to go over the stadium or something like that. And I think one of the most valuable things, even though we described before that it is algorithmically generated, a lot of people don't realize with the bat, and I'm hesitant to tell people about it. You do tomorrow's projections before they come out. That
Yep.
a lot of people don't seem to realize, like some of these numbers come out at like 11 at night, at 12 at night for the next day. Prize Picks, Underdog, they start putting out, some, not all of them. And people may be sitting there going, yeah, I'll wake up in the morning, load up my projections, whether it be you're not using the bat, you're using some other projections. You're obviously, if you're building your own, you could do whatever the hell you want. But a lot of times they're like, oh, I gotta wait until they update in the morning. Like I go to tomorrow's projections, and as long as nothing seems like it's like significantly like off pitch count wise, like I'm grabbing numbers before even people that use the bat projections are waking up in the morning. And the best feeling I have, Derek, the best feeling in the world during MLB season is taking that over 5.5 minus 110 strikeout prop at 11:30 at night, and then wake up in the morning and it's over 6.5 at minus 128, and I just go,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you. Like I'm not able to, yeah, and even at over 6.5 at minus 128 shows like a 5% edge, and I'm like there are people that are like, yeah, I'm going to take that, and I'm like, dude, you don't realize the number I got like 12 hours ago, right? And they don't realize that because I'm looking at the projections the night before. And especially when you go on a lot of shows, right, during MLB season, you're saying the same thing. Like, dude, when you go on shows and go, okay, here's your best bet of the day. It's like, dude, I can read the bat. It feels like I could take your play. Like, I feels like I could take your place. It's like, dude, they just asked. He was on for 4 minutes, gave out the 5 biggest edges of the bat that I already have, right? And then everyone jumps on board and dude, I got your best bets like 9 to 12 hours in advance. Like to me, that's such a bit to me, especially we'll talk about market movement. I mean, in and of itself, being able to have fairly reasonable, accurate projections when openers come out. I mean, what bigger? I mean, the whole point is to bet as early as possible to get the biggest edges. Like if I screw up every once in a while, some pitch count will be significantly off, and I'll find out that I'm betting someone's over, and then the next morning it's like, no, they're going to be limited to 65 pitches, and I'm like, whoops. I hope they get there in 4 innings, right? For every one of those, there's 9 others that I'm getting. Like if you want to count CLV, I'm getting such significant CLV, and I'm winning those at 75+% rates that, like, good luck. Like I look at my tracking and go, Yeah, I don't know which ones those are going to be, but it's might as well, you know, before I go to bed, hammer, these 8 to 10 things, make my prize picks cards, and I just wake up in the morning. And if I would say 75% of the time, 75% of all the numbers have moved in my favor.
Yeah, it's a good point about being able to use the projections to find plays yourself. I do the shows throughout the year, and I love doing them, and they're fun. And the record, I keep a record of them. I keep a spreadsheet that's publicly available, and everyone can see that the record has been really good. But I am mostly just using the projections, and I'm kind of being pigeonholed into, okay, I have to give this out at a certain time every day, so I can only do what's available then. I'm not getting opening lines. But that's why I encourage people, like, okay, watch the shows, they're great, but once you kind of get the hang of it, get the full set of projections and look yourself and look earlier.
Well, you can get the projections. You're selling them now. It's still at Roto Grinders as well as EV Analytics, right?
Yeah.
So the Roto Grinders projections are DFS projections, but you also include the statistical projections. You include tomorrow's projections, the percentile projection, like everything included is there. The EV Analytics ones are more geared for their like odd screens and dashboards type of stuff. So like if you get the projections from Roto Grinders, what I do is that I get them and I import them into unabated, and I use their odd screens to do that. But if you're an Excel whiz and you just want to download the CSVs of the projections, which get updated, I don't know, every 5 minutes, every 30 minutes, depending on the time of day, you can do anything you want by yourself in Excel. You could bring it you could, it's kind of like, here you go, use it as you please. These things get updated all the time. And as it is tradition with me and you,
I know it's fun.
your yearly pass on Roto Grinders is $500. The MLB season is like what, 200 days or something?
Yeah, a little less, but around there.
Right. It should be 10 times more money. I say this it has gone up in price, but I think it's quite a steal for the fact that baseball is played every day with the amount of games that are played every day, and that for one, $500 price or not, or $100 a month or $25 for a 3-day pass, like for something you use every day, assuming your volume, if you're a $10 better and you're betting, with $1,000 bankroll, obviously you shouldn't be spending $500 on projections. But I mean, you're using this every day, like even for 150 days out of the year, right? I mean, that's like $3 a day
Yeah, it's nothing.
for what I believe are the best projections on the market. So, like when I put that into like it's literally I know it's trite to say it's the cost of a cup of coffee a day. For the fact that over the past 3 years on sports books as well as prize picks and underdog, that I've gotten an 18% ROI using the bat.
That's a great
Only because,
number.
well, obviously prize picks and underdog, that's not necessary. I mean, because you're hitting fives, you're hitting, like
Yeah,
obviously you're gonna have a higher ROI, but your variance is gonna be like all over the
yeah.
place. But just on the actual sports books, my ROI was 8%, a little over
Still
8%.
really good. Yeah.
So like, and if I'm putting down several $1,000 a day at 8%, I mean, what if I'm putting down $2,000 or $3,000, and let's say I put down $2,000 at an 8% ROI, right? What is that? That's what, $160. And other than my hour or 2 hours of time, I had to pay like $3.50 a day in order to do it. I think that's a
Seems
reasonable
like a pretty
expense.
good trade-off to me.
Right. This is the reason, Derek, why I say you should charge more.
I know. I mean, it's worth more. Like objectively, we know it's worth more.
But you're
You
too
know.
good. I don't know why. I don't. I literally. Dude. I have this comment. You know me. I'm like, dude. You could either give this out for $500 to 1,000 people, or you could charge 10 times as much and give it out to 200 people and make twice as much money.
And
Right?
I get that from subscribers all the time. I get subscribers actually asking me to raise the price so fewer people have access to it. Like, it's
Right.
just, people don't usually ask to pay more for something unless there's a really good reason for it.
Well, the really good reason is so maybe if less people paid for it and it was more money, I could wake up in the morning and the lines still haven't moved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Derek, people can find you at Derek Carty on Twitter if they have any questions. I know you're in the Unabated Discord. You're in the Roto Grinders Discord. Obviously, if you get the Bat X projection system on Roto Grinders, you also get access to the Bat Discord channel, which you typically that's your main place where you hang
Yeah.
out. But you also have a channel in the Unabated Discord as well. Like getting in touch with you or even asking questions about your projections, even on a day-to-day basis of like, I don't know, this pitch count seems to be off, or I'm not sure why this team projects so high or low. You answer all those questions like
Yeah. I
every
make it a
day.
point to answer every question I get from Twitter, DMs, all the Discord channels, email, anywhere you can get in touch with me. I make it a point as much as possible to answer the questions, especially if it's, in a timely manner. If it's about today's game, you don't know why, or you don't understand why a certain player projects a certain way. Like, I'll explain to you and I'll help you understand it, because it's one thing to know, okay, these are the best projections and people use them, and Blender says he has an 18% ROI, and like, that's great for some people, maybe that's enough, but for other people, they want to understand, okay, this isn't intuitive to me. Why is this guy projecting so well when he's done XYZ that kind of says the opposite? And I'll explain it. And it helps people understand the process more, and understand, it makes them a better going forward, because then they can start to see those situations themselves in the future and be like, oh, okay, I see. This is why there's such a big gap between the projection and the market. It's because the market's not accounting for this, or whatever it may be.
Rotogrinders.com, evanalytics.com. You can pair it together with unabated.com and you set up your process every day, at night, in the morning, 2 hours before game times. Like, doesn't take that much time. And your projections get updated very quickly. I'm able to download them very easily. Go there, follow Derek Carty. If there is such a thing as a best projections on the market, my opinion, it would be the Bat X projection system. So even if you don't get it, at least hit the thumbs up on the video in agreement that at least if you like Carty's hair, hit the thumbs up button. That's another good reason to do so.